There's a sound a key makes when it no longer belongs to you. It's not a click, not the satisfying little snap of tumblers aligning. It's a dull, metallic thud, a dead end. The sound of a boundary being drawn in steel. It's the sound of a door, a home, a shared future, transforming into a wall. I know that sound more intimately than I know my own heartbeat now. I can feel its phantom vibration in my bones on quiet nights, because I was the one who handed over the key, metaphorically speaking, long before he ever called the locksmith. I just didn't have the wisdom to know it yet. Our life, Liam's and mine, was built on a bedrock of comfortable certainties. We found each other in our last year at the University of Colorado Boulder, two celestial bodies on wildly different orbits, somehow caught in the same gravitational pull. He was the quiet, brilliant architecture student, a man who seemed to speak the language of lines and angles more fluently than he spoke English. His natural habitat was the hushed, dusty upper floor of the university library. I was the ambitious marketing major, a whirlwind of ideas and conversation, convinced I could talk my way into or out of anything. On paper, we were a paradox. In reality, we were a perfect equilibrium. He was my anchor in a chaotic world. I was his sail, urging him into waters he never knew he wanted to explore. 3 years after graduation, we had nested. Our apartment in Denver's low-high neighborhood was our sanctuary, a testament to our combined aesthetics. His minimalist, structural sensibilities were softened by my love for texture and warmth. We had a small balcony that overlooked the pulsing grid of city lights, a view that never got old. Our daily routine was our love language, a quiet, unspoken poem. On weekdays, it was a frantic, laughing race to the Keurig, a dance around each other in our small kitchen. It was a quick, firm kiss at the door before he headed to his architecture firm, and I went to the downtown marketing agency. Our days were stitched together by a constant stream of texts, screenshots of absurd memes, dramatic complaints about our respective bosses, photos of dogs we saw on the street, and always, without fail, the 6 p.m. text from him, "What's for dinner?" Weekends were our sacred time, our escape from the concrete and steel. We'd throw our worn-out hiking gear into the back of his old Subaru, a car held together by hope and duct tape, and drive west on I-70. The moment we passed the foothills and the true, jagged majesty of the Rockies filled the windshield, we would both exhale, a synchronized release of the city's tension. We weren't just hiking, we were on a mission. We were scouting, dreaming, planning. We had this shared fantasy, a project so detailed and beloved it had a name, the Oregon Project. It was our 5-year plan. We were saving every spare dollar, funneling it into a high-yield savings account labeled Future Forest Home. The goal was a small, unassuming plot of land near the Oregon coast, somewhere misty and green, smelling of pine and salt. Liam, with his brilliant mind and capable hands, would design and build a small, elegant A-frame cabin himself. Our forever home. A place built not by a construction company, but by our own love and determination. He had blueprints, dozens of them, tacked to a massive corkboard that took up an entire wall in our spare bedroom, which we called the project room. He'd spend countless hours in there, the soft scratch of his pencil on vellum a familiar evening soundtrack. He obsessed over the details, calculating roof pitches, figuring out the precise, perfect placement for a large picture window that would catch the morning sun over the Douglas firs. My role, I joked, was chief of vibes. My Pinterest boards were a digital tapestry of our future life. Images of couples wrapped in Pendleton blankets, worn leather armchairs, steaming mugs of coffee, and crackling fireplaces. It felt more real than our actual apartment. It wasn't a question of if, but when. For our 3-year anniversary, he didn't buy me jewelry or take me to a fancy restaurant. We stayed in. He cooked my favorite pasta, and we slow danced in the living room to a crackling vinyl record. Then, he presented me with a large, flat, wrapped gift. Inside was a professionally framed museum-quality print of his final, most perfect cabin design. It showed every beam, every window, every nail. Beneath the stunningly detailed drawing, in his neat architectural script, were the words, "For Maya, our next chapter." Tears streamed down my face as I traced the lines of our future home with my fingertips. They were tears of pure, unadulterated happiness. How could anyone not be deliriously happy with a love like that? A love that was so solid, so planned, so safe. And that, I would later realize, was the insidious, creeping problem. Safety. The very foundation I cherished, the thing that made me feel so secure, slowly began to feel less like a foundation and more like a beautifully decorated cage. The change wasn't a sudden storm. It was a slow, imperceptible shift in the climate of my soul. It was a quiet poisoning, and my best friend Chloe was the one administering the dose, drop by insidious drop. Chloe's life was a masterclass in curated chaos. A freelance graphic designer, she treated apartments like temporary art installations and dated men she met on Hinge with a ferocity that was both impressive and terrifying. Her Instagram feed was a perfectly filtered explosion of spontaneous weekend trips to Austin, moody pictures of cocktails on rooftop bars, and blurry, ecstatic selfies with a rotating cast of handsome, temporary men. Our weekly brunch became my weekly dose of discontent. She'd hold her phone up, scrolling through her latest adventure. "Oh my God, Maya, you have to come out with me and the girls this weekend. We're hitting this new speakeasy downtown. The password is Firefly." "I can't," I'd reply, a familiar script. "Liam and I have our Sunday hike. We're checking out a trail near Brainerd Lake." She'd fix me with that look, a carefully crafted cocktail of pity, confusion, and sisterly concern. "A hike? Again? Maya, sweetie, don't you ever get bored? You're 27, not 57. This is supposed to be your selfish, messy, story-collecting era. You're living like a settled, married woman." I'd offer a weak defense, laughing it off as she ordered another mimosa. But her words were like burrs, clinging to me long after we'd paid the check. They'd echo in the quiet of our apartment as I performed the small, routine acts of a shared life, picking up Liam's discarded socks, debating whose turn it was to unload the dishwasher. Bored, settled, wasting your prime. The poison seeped deeper during my nightly ritual, the endless, mindless social media scroll. My feed became a weapon I turned on myself. It was a highlight reel of curated adventures from everyone I knew. Friends from college posting sun-drenched photos from their backpacking trip through Southeast Asia. A junior coworker from my office being flown to Miami for the weekend by a man she'd been dating for a month. Everyone was experiencing. They were collecting passport stamps, memories, lovers, heartbreaks. And what was I collecting? Matching Tupperware and a shared savings account? A gnawing anxiety began to take root in my gut. It was a deep-seated, irrational fear that I was missing out on a fundamental part of the human experience. The messy part, the uncertain, experimental part. The part where you make colossal mistakes and, in the wreckage, discover who you truly are. I'd only ever seriously dated 2 people in my entire life before Liam. How could I possibly know he was the one with such a ridiculously small sample size? How could I commit to forever without even a glimpse of the alternative? It felt like I was sitting in a movie theater, watching the vibrant, action-packed films of everyone else's lives, while my own film was stuck on the opening credits, endlessly rolling the names of the cast and crew of a future I hadn't yet earned. A constant, low-grade panic set in, the terrifying thought that I had chosen my entire life's path at the tender age of 24, and was now just dutifully walking it, without ever daring to look at the other trails branching off into the dark, exciting woods. The tipping point, the moment the hairline crack in my contentment shattered, arrived on an unremarkable Tuesday night. I was curled up on our plush gray couch, bathed in the cool blue light of my phone, scrolling. Chloe had just posted a story from a concert at Red Rocks. She was on some tall guy's shoulders, her head thrown back, mouth open in a silent scream as she sang along to a song, looking utterly, incandescently free. In the next room, I could hear the familiar, rhythmic, wet sound of Liam chewing his dinner. It was a sound I once found endearing, a sign that he was home, safe, with me. That night, it grated on my nerves with the violence of nails on a chalkboard. Suddenly, everything about him, everything I once loved for its comforting predictability, felt like a personal affront. The way he always, without fail, wanted to order from the same 3 Thai restaurants on Postmates. The way he wore the same faded gray University of Colorado hoodie around the apartment like a second skin. The way he'd inevitably fall asleep on the couch by 10 p.m., his book resting on his chest. The man who had been my comfort zone was morphing before my eyes into a beautifully wallpapered prison, and I was clawing at the walls. I knew I had to say something. In my mind, I wasn't planning a demolition. I was planning a renovation. In my deluded self-assurance, I convinced myself it wasn't a breakup. It was a negotiation, an adjustment, a simple software update for our long-term relationship. I rehearsed my speech for days, practicing in the shower, in my car during my commute. I would be calm, I would be rational, I would be loving. I would make him understand. That Saturday, the air was warm and golden. He was at his desk in the project room, the afternoon sun streaming in, illuminating the dancing dust motes and the focused intensity on his face. He was sketching a new detail for the Oregon cabin's roofline. It was a scene of such perfect, tranquil domesticity that it felt like a photograph from a magazine. And I was about to walk in and set it on fire. "Liam," I started, my voice emerging as a thin, reedy thing, betraying the calm I was trying to project. "Can we talk for a minute?" He swiveled in his chair, a warm, easy smile instantly lighting up his face, the kind of smile that had made me fall in love with him in the first place. "Sure. What's up?" I didn't sit next to him. I perched on the edge of our bed, creating a physical distance between us. I began twisting the hem of my shirt, my hands suddenly feeling like foreign objects. "First, I need you to hear this. I love you. You know that, right? You are the kindest, most decent person I have ever known." His smile faltered, the light in his eyes dimming. He knew, as anyone who has ever been on the receiving end of such a speech knows, that this was the preamble to a storm. "Okay, what's going on, Maya? You're scaring me." I took a shaky breath, the words I had practiced for days feeling like ash in my mouth. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about life, and us, and our future, and I feel like I need a little space. I think I need to experience more before we fully commit to the next chapter." He stared at me, his expression a kaleidoscope of confusion. Experience more? What does that even mean? We experience things every weekend. We go hiking, we see our friends, we went to Santa Fe last fall. "No," I interrupted, a sharp edge to my voice that surprised even me. "That's not what I mean. I mean, experience life as Just me. For a little while. I see Chloe and all our other friends, and they're out there, dating, making mistakes, traveling alone, just being single. And sometimes I get this terrifying feeling that I rushed into settling down too young, that I missed out on the part where I'm supposed to figure out who I am, on my own. Liam's face, which was usually so open and expressive, became pale and still. Missed out? Maya, we've been building a life together brick by brick for 3 years. We have the Oregon Project. We aren't settling down. We're building a future we designed, together. I know, I insisted, my voice rising with a desperate, defensive frustration. And it's a beautiful future. It's everything I thought I wanted. But I want to be sure. I want to walk into that future, into that cabin, as a whole person, without a single what if hanging over my head. Maybe we could take a break? The words hung in the air, ugly and sharp. Not break up. I don't want to break up, but an open break. We could see other people, just for a little while, to get it out of our systems, to be sure. The moment I finished speaking, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The warm, sunlit air became thin, cold, and hard to breathe. Liam looked at me as if I were a stranger, a dangerous imposter who had taken the place of the woman he loved. See other people, he repeated, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. It was a tone I had never heard from him before. So, let me get this straight. You want to put our life on pause. You want me to just sit here in our apartment, water the plants, and wait for you while you go out and experience other men? Is that the proposal? And then what happens? You come back in a few months or a year, pat me on the head and say, "Okay, I'm done with my little adventure. I've conducted my research, and you're still the best option?" It wouldn't be like that, I protested, a hot flush of shame rising in my cheeks, because a small, selfish, ugly part of me knew that was exactly, precisely, how I had pictured it. You could see other people too. It would be fair. He let out a short, sharp, bitter laugh that held no humor at all. Fair? Maya, I don't want to see other people. I want you. I really, genuinely thought you wanted me. Is this about someone else? Did you meet someone? No, God, no. It's not about anyone else. It's about me. It's about my life. The conversation devolved from there into a painful, circular nightmare. It was an argument built of my selfish, poorly articulated desires and his logical, wounded responses. I accused him of being insecure, of trying to control me. He accused me of being breathtakingly selfish, of wanting to have my cake and eat it too, of treating his heart like a safety deposit box I could come back to after I was done gambling. He wasn't wrong, on any count. Finally, utterly exhausted and weeping with a frustration I couldn't properly name, I said the words that would become the epitaph of our relationship. Fine. If you can't even try to understand, then I need some actual space to think. I'm going to go stay with Chloe for a few days. I stormed into our bedroom and began throwing clothes into an overnight bag, my hands shaking with a mixture of anger and a terror I refused to acknowledge. As I walked to the door, he was standing in the middle of the living room, his arms crossed over his chest, his face a mask of stone. He looked like a stranger in our own home. "If you walk out that door, Maya," he said, his voice completely void of all its usual warmth, as cold and hard as granite, "don't for a second expect to just walk back in whenever you decide you're ready." "You're being dramatic," I shot back, my vision blurred by a self-righteousness that was as intoxicating as it was destructive. "You'll see that I'm being reasonable when you've had some time to cool off." I wrenched the door open and slammed it shut behind me. The sound echoed in the sterile, silent hallway. I didn't know it then, but it was the sound of my entire life breaking in two. Chloe's apartment, a temple to impermanence, was even more chaotic up close. The first night was a blur of cheap, acidic wine and her relentless, performative cheerleading. Yes, Queen, this is your liberation, your eat, pray, love moment. You are so brave. We went to a loud, crowded bar where I felt like a ghost, watching her flirt effortlessly while I stood awkwardly, nursing a drink and feeling a profound, aching sense of displacement. This wasn't freedom, it was just noise. The bravery had curdled into regret by the third day. Her designer couch was a torture device for my spine. Her constant stream of friends and hinge dates made me feel like an awkward, unwanted piece of furniture. And Liam hadn't texted. He hadn't called. The digital silence was a roaring in my ears. A cold, heavy knot of fear was forming in the pit of my stomach. My grand gesture of independence was starting to feel a lot like a colossal, life-altering mistake. On the fourth day, as I was trying to work on my laptop amidst the debris of her previous night's party, Chloe dropped the bomb with the casual cruelty of someone utterly self-absorbed. Hey, so, Marco is staying the weekend. You know, the guy from the rock climbing gym? It's gonna be like a whole thing. We need our space. Do you think you could, you know, find somewhere else to crash for a few days? Just like that, I was gently, but firmly, kicked out. My champion of liberation was prioritizing a weekend fling over her supposedly soul-searching best friend. My freedom had made me homeless. I called another friend, Jessica, my voice thick with a shame I could barely choke down. Jessica was kinder, more stable. She and her long-term boyfriend, Mark, let me stay on their couch. But their home was a living, breathing testament to everything I had just thrown away. It was filled with a quiet, comfortable intimacy. The way they moved around each other in the kitchen, their easy banter, their shared jokes, it was a constant, painful mirror reflecting my own stupidity. Jessica offered gentle advice. Are you sure you thought this through, Maya? Liam is a good man, a rare man. I wasn't ready to hear it. After a week of couch surfing, of feeling like a pathetic, nomadic burden, I couldn't take it anymore. The fantasy had evaporated, leaving behind a harsh, ugly reality. I swallowed the jagged rock of my pride. I was wrong. Terribly, horribly, catastrophically wrong. I just needed to go home. I needed to crawl back to Liam, get on my knees if I had to, and beg him to forgive me. I took an Uber back to our apartment building, my heart pounding a frantic, desperate rhythm against my ribs. The hallway, once so familiar and welcoming, felt alien and hostile. I rehearsed my apology, a litany of sorrow. I'm so sorry. I was a fool, a complete idiot. It's only you. It's always been you. Please, please let me come home. I reached our door, number 4B. My hand was trembling as I slid my key into the lock. It went in, but it didn't turn. It hit a hard, unmoving stop. My blood ran cold. I tried again, jiggling it, pushing it, as if my desperation alone could will the tumblers into place. Nothing. Just that dead, final metallic thud. I knocked, a soft, hopeful rap. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time, the sound echoing unnaturally in the quiet hall. I pounded, my fists hitting the solid wood, a primal, panicked rhythm. No answer. Our neighbor from 3B, a sweet, white-haired old woman named Mrs. Gable, poked her head out, her face etched with concern. Oh, Maya, dear, is everything all right? He's not home, left for work this morning, same as always. My key, I whispered, my voice a panicked, broken thing. It isn't working. She gave me a look of such deep, profound sympathy it nearly brought me to my knees. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I saw the locksmith here yesterday afternoon. I just assumed, I thought you knew. Locksmith. The word hung in the air between us, sucking all the oxygen out of the hallway. It was a word of finality, a word of eviction. I slid down the wall, my back against the door, his door, and let my head fall into my hands. He'd actually done it. He had locked me out. He had surgically removed me from our life. I fumbled for my phone, my hands trembling so violently I could barely unlock the screen. I called him. It rang once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, he picked up. His voice was flat, detached, the voice of a customer service representative. "What do you want, Maya?" "You changed the locks," I sobbed, the words tearing from my throat. "Liam, how could you? My things, my clothes, my whole life is in there." "The landlord is aware of the situation," he said, his voice as cold and precise as a scalpel. "I've officially taken over the lease. I have a box of your essentials, your laptop, work clothes, toiletries, with the building superintendent. You can retrieve it from him. You can arrange a time to come get the rest of your things. My lawyer will be in touch about the logistics." Lawyer, lease, superintendent, logistics. These were words for strangers, for hostile business transactions, not for us, not for the couple with the Oregon project, not for Maya and Liam. "You can't just throw me away like I'm garbage," I screamed into the phone, my voice raw with disbelief and pain. "I made a mistake, a horrible mistake." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. For the first time, a fissure of raw emotion cracked through his icy composure. It wasn't love or sadness. It was the sound of pure, bitter, cauterized pain. "You threw us away, Maya. You did that. The moment you decided our life, our future, was an option you needed to test against other experiences. The moment you looked at me and saw a safety net instead of a partner. You wanted to explore life? Well, this is it. You're free. Goodbye." He hung up, and I sat there in the silent, empty hallway of the life I had so casually, so arrogantly torched, completely and utterly alone. My grand liberation was a cold, carpeted hallway. My glorious freedom was homelessness. My experiences were a cardboard box of essentials waiting for me at the front desk, like a consolation prize in a game I had already lost. The next few months were a Dantean descent into a personal hell of my own making. I found a depressing, overpriced studio apartment in a soulless complex by the highway. I subsisted on ramen and regret. I tried dating, a grim parade of awkward, disheartening encounters with men from apps who were either emotionally unavailable, intellectually vacant, or only interested in a single, transactional thing. Each failed date was a fresh stab of grief, a glaring, fluorescent-lit reminder of the effortless, profound intimacy I had thrown away for nothing. I finally arranged to get the last of my things on a Sunday afternoon. He had agreed via a terse email to be out of the apartment. Walking back into that space was a unique form of torture. It was our home, but it was no longer mine. It was like visiting a museum of my own failed life. My favorite throw pillows were gone, replaced by severe, minimalist gray ones. The framed photo of us laughing at the Grand Canyon was gone from the mantelpiece. The whole apartment felt different. Colder, tidier, less like a home, more like a showroom. And on the massive corkboard in the project room, where the detailed blueprints for our Oregon cabin used to be, there was a single, stunning, large-scale photograph of the Narrows in Zion National Park, a place I'd always dreamed of going, a place he had clearly gone without me. As I was taping up the last cardboard box, my heart a leaden weight in my chest, my movements slow and heavy with a grief so profound it felt physical, the front door opened, It was Liam, and he wasn't alone. A woman was with him. She was beautiful, but not in the flashy, look-at-me way of the women on my Instagram feed. She had a quiet elegance, a calm, intelligent smile, and kind eyes. She was carrying a reusable grocery bag filled with fresh vegetables and a bottle of the expensive Cabernet Sauvignon he loved, the one we only bought for special occasions. Liam froze when he saw me, his face closing off instantly. "Maya, I thought you'd be gone by now." "I was just leaving," I mumbled, my eyes glued to the woman, this serene, lovely intruder in my life's wreckage. "This is Dr. Sarah Evans," Liam said, his voice stiff and formal. "Sarah, this is Maya." Sarah gave me a polite, slightly awkward smile, the kind you give a stranger you've been told a sad story about. "It's nice to meet you, Dr. Evans." Of course. Of course he had met a doctor. While I was out experiencing emotionally stunted bartenders and finance bros who couldn't hold a conversation, he had met a woman with a doctorate. I couldn't help myself. The question, sharp and laced with a venomous jealousy, spilled out of me before I could stop it. "How long has this been going on?" Liam's face hardened, his jaw tightening. "That's none of your business, Maya. But since you feel the need to ask, I met Sarah in a continuing education class I started taking 2 months ago, a geology class at the university. It's on Tuesday nights. You never once asked where I was going." The accusation, delivered so calmly, hit me like a physical blow. It was true. I had been so utterly consumed with my own manufactured misery, my own selfish quest, that I hadn't even noticed he was bettering himself, learning something new, building a new interest, a new life, without me. Then I saw it. The final, devastating, soul-crushing detail. Around Sarah's neck was a delicate, understated silver necklace. The charm hanging from it was a tiny, intricately detailed mountain range. I recognized it instantly. It was the exact mountain range from the minimalist logo Liam had designed for our Oregon project. He had given her my dream. He hadn't just replaced me in his apartment. He had replaced me in our future. He had found a new partner to build it with. Is there a pain worse than being replaced? Not just being cast aside, but being seamlessly, efficiently swapped out for a better, more suitable model who fits perfectly into the life you were supposed to have, the life you threw away. "Please take your things and go," Liam said, his voice quiet but absolute, leaving no room for argument. He turned to Sarah, and the cold, hard mask he wore for me melted away instantly, replaced by a look of such gentle, protective affection it made my stomach churn. "I'm sorry about that," he murmured to her. "Let's open that wine." As I stumbled out of the apartment, dragging the last box of my pathetic belongings behind me, I heard the sound of the cork popping. I didn't let the tears fall until I was safely inside my car, parked on a street that no longer felt like mine. I wasn't just crying for him, for us, for the life we were supposed to have. I was crying for the stupid, arrogant, foolish girl who stood in a field of diamonds and threw them all away because she was chasing the fleeting sparkle of cheap glitter. It's been a year now, a long, gray, empty year. My studio apartment, with its view of a parking lot, still doesn't feel like home. It's just the place I sleep. My career, once a source of pride, has stalled. It turns out that a complete and total personal life implosion isn't conducive to professional focus and ambition. Through the cruel, unforgiving grapevine of social media, I watch his life unfold. It's a beautiful life. It's everything we planned, just with her smiling face in my place. They took that trip to Zion. The pictures were breathtaking. They bought the land in Oregon. His posts are now filled with pictures of sawdust, towering trees, and the slowly rising skeleton of an A-frame cabin. Their photos are filled with a genuine, unposed, unfiltered joy. He looks lighter. He looks happier than I have ever seen him. The final, definitive blow came last month. A mutual friend, probably out of a misguided sense of duty, sent me a screenshot from his private Instagram. It was a picture of Sarah's hand, held in his. A beautiful, simple, elegant ring was on her finger. In the background, out of focus, was the half-built cabin, our dream home. The caption read, "She said yes to our next chapter. I can't wait to build a life with my best friend and my true partner, Dr. Sarah Evans. Some things are just certain." Certainty. The very thing I ran from, the very concept I had scorned as boring and safe, was the thing he found, the thing he cherished, the moment I was gone. I had told him I needed to experience more, and in the end, my wish was granted. I experienced what it's like to be a temporary, inconvenient burden to your friends. I experienced the crushing, suffocating weight of true, profound loneliness. I experienced the bitter, metallic taste of regret, a taste that never, ever leaves your mouth. And he experienced more, too. More love, more success, more adventure, more happiness. Just not with me. So I ask you, as I sit here tonight in the suffocating quiet of my apartment, surrounded by things that mean nothing, what's the bigger risk? Committing to a love that feels safe and certain, a love that feels like home, or throwing it all away for the glittering, seductive idea of something more, only to discover, far too late, that what you were desperately searching for was exactly what you had all along. Think about it, please, because some doors, once you choose to close them behind you, don't just lock. They turn to stone. They disappear forever.